You're listening to The Tide Pod, hosted by your friendly neighborhood PhD.
Well, hi everyone. It's another edition of the Tide Pod, and I'm joined by Taylor. And today we're going to be talking about her journey and background and a little bit of our hobbies and interests maybe later on at the end. So, Taylor, thanks for joining me. I'm happy to have you here.
Awesome. Thank you, Ty, for having me. I'm really excited. This is the first podcast I've ever been a guest on.
Oh,
So
really? Nice.
that's really exciting. I have my own podcast and I would like to really help people with growth and healing and being their best selves that they can on their journey. My professional background, I am a training and development manager. So I focus on training managers and other executives and people at the company for leadership skills and with a big focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion as well. So one of
Mhm.
my missions and something that's really important to my life is trying to make sure that everyone feels included, that everyone feels seen, that everyone feels heard, and that we all feel like we're connected and that we're a part of something bigger because that's how the world is in my eyes. Like we all have something in common, no matter
Mhm.
our backgrounds or where we're from. And to take it like very basic as when someone's like, I'm afraid to talk to someone because of their title. I'm like, well,
Mhm.
we all need water, right, to stay hydrated. So when you think of it at like a very basic, or we all need to eat food to keep
Mhm.
living, like we're all created in a similar way. So like we have a lot more in common than we think sometimes.
Right. No, I totally agree. And I know in today's kind of society, it's easy to, maybe idolize or like put people on pedestals or something. But you're right. Like in the end, that human being type, basic needs is always going to be there regardless, and then yeah, that's something good to remember. Um, so your background, so like you're coming from the lens of trying to bring that sort of like peace and kindness and and everything. Your particular journey, is that something that you've kind of had along the way or that you developed at some point in your life? Like if you want to talk a little bit about just your journey and how you got to this point where you are.
Yeah, so it's definitely something that I will say has developed in the last 4 years. It wasn't something that I had always thought about, coming from my past, 20 prior to 2020, like I was a very negative person. I was someone who kind of believe in kindness and based on what I saw in my life. And then in 2020 I had stopped drinking alcohol and I
Mhm.
started listening to podcasts. On Purpose with Jay Shetty was the first one that really spoke to me, and I was like, wow, this is really incredible that there are people out here doing the work. And then I read some books that had a huge impact on my life, and just The Secret, that whole series by Rhonda Byrne. I'm like, wow, like gratitude and what we put out into the world, right,
Mhm.
around us. Like that was something that when I was in a negative mindset, I would always think that something bad was going to happen. And then I'm like, well, if I keep thinking this way, that's literally like what I'm getting. So I was like, you know what? I'm in control of a lot more than I think I am. So it kind of
Mhm.
started in 2020. I got a new job. And, I realized like this job had so many kind people. They had a really big focus on DEI and making
Mhm.
people feel included. Like in my first week, I remember talking with so many colleagues, and I was like, is this real life? And then from there, like the journey just continued on like
Mhm.
joining different organizations and connecting with different people. So a lot of, I think, just life. And when I see someone struggling and, they have a very negative mindset, I
Mhm.
have to stop myself because sometimes I want to say, like, we can control so much of
Mhm.
life, like what happens to us, what happens in the world around us. It's a
Right.
scary time, it's a difficult place, but we can control how we show up. And we can be kind, right?
Right.
Regardless of like what happened in my day, like I can smile and say thank you to someone at the store.
Right, right. And I think that kind of creates that sort of more of a self-love type thing and acceptance of, kind of who you are and what you're bringing to the table, and I think that definitely is reflected in, probably every aspect from, job, just random people walking by, like family, when you sort of intentionally are kind and empathetic that way, it to me, it seems like it helps you carry that forward as well, and like you're changing the things you can control. You can change your career path, you can change, the people that you associate with. That's those are the things you can't control, right? Obviously. And the other things you kind of have to let go, it seems like at some point, as hard as it is. And you mentioned the whole DEI space and everything. What can you talk a little bit about, kind of how that's involved with your current job and everything?
Yeah, so at my job, we have what we call employee resource groups, and we have 5 different ones. We have cultural power, pride and power, proud to serve, empowerment and balance. Then we have woman and power to kind of encompass many different people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different capabilities. So since I've started, these groups have become such a safe space for people to show up and to connect with people who may be having a similar experience or similar feelings, or just to, for me, it's been so I can show up and I can learn. I think there's so many things that I didn't think of prior to joining these groups and learning about DEI and taking trainings like unconscious bias and microaggressions. And you just think like, there's so many things in our day to day that we might say on accident, right? That could be
Mhm.
offensive to someone and hurt someone's feelings, or just the way that we stereotype and assume things. Like, it's helped me to just kind of take that all back. But I think what I've noticed is like everyone that, is a part of this, they all have that same kind of passion and commitment and want to show up and make people feel included. And it's so important to me that people just, I never say like you have to agree with everything, right? Because
Right.
people have different beliefs,
Oh, definitely.
but at least be open and respectful to the idea that everyone can coexist together.
Right, right. And I know that some people, many times they say things and they're not willing to even, change or be open to even realizing, oh, I need to take a step back. And that didn't, like you're kind of learning as well, and changing. And I just feel like that open-mindedness is so needed today, because obviously there's just constant negativity out there, with if you like it doesn't take long to find it if you're, if you're not even looking for it. So I think that's that whole openness factor, and being able to come to the table and have discussions, without people getting, aggressive or angry. It's like I mean, that's a pretty powerful thing still. And I think it always will be.
Yeah, it's helped me to just be kinder and more understanding. And even when I'm doing, volunteer things, to kind of think about like, we want to include everybody. So what are some barriers that people have? So when they put out the flyers, like they're translated into Spanish and Portuguese, because where I live, a lot of folks are either,
Mhm.
those areas and speak those languages. Or what about transportation? Or what
Mhm.
about, so many different things. And it's like, just being mindful. And obviously, like, you can't help everyone all the time, but at least making it inclusive enough where people feel comfortable and they feel like the support is there.
Yeah, definitely. That makes so much sense. And you're when you were younger, like thinking on your career goals and kind of where you were headed, is this somewhere near that, or did it completely take a different track than what you ever imagined it would?
Yeah, I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. On one of my episodes, I said like my only goal was I wanted to be a professional wrestler, and then that went out the door really quick because
So that
I
opened up so many choices after that.
I was like, okay, where am I going to go from here? And I never had something, outside of writing. Also, I love to write and make stories and creative, but I never had like, I want to be a salesperson or I want to be a businesswoman. Like, that was never something that, I was passionate about. But then at my previous company, I started as an admin, an administrative assistant, and it was a great opening to what is now my career, because there was an opening in our training team. And my whole life I've been horrified of public speaking. Like, even doing something like this 10 years
Mhm.
ago, I would have been like, no.
No way. Yeah, I feel you there.
So I took a job on training, which
Mhm.
required public speaking and travel. And then I just, continued to get certifications and continued to practice. I ended up getting a new job almost 5 years ago, and that's
Mhm.
kind of this space that I'm in now. But if you told me as a kid, like who couldn't stand up in front of a classroom full of 20 people and read a
Mhm.
paper, or even like when they used to call on you to read the page in the book, like I would be
Oh yeah.
shaking and I couldn't say the words.
I remember always hating the ones that I would get the paragraph that had like song lyrics, and you'd be expected to like put some kind of musical tone with it, and I was just like, no. But
Yeah. It's like you like see who's ahead of you, and I'm trying to count the paragraphs. I'm not
exactly.
listening to anyone else because I'm like, which
Yeah,
one is
like
it
10
me?
students over, and it's going to be your
Yeah.
section. Yeah.
So like if
Yeah.
you told me back then that I would actually enjoy speaking in front of a group of people, that I would be training people, that I would have a podcast, that I'd be on podcasts, like I would have
Mhm.
been like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's
Right.
wild.
Wow, that's really cool though. I mean, like how, you know, you can kind of organically reach the place that you're at now, and it's, I don't know, it's kind of interesting thinking back on kind of my pathway a little bit too. I think I wanted to be a paleontologist right when I was younger, and look for fossils and all of that kind of thing. But then the background was totally changed as I was going along. And so yeah, it's funny to think back, your early childhood days and kind of you know, where you thought you might be.
Yeah, and I think it's just always reminds me that like we can do more than sometimes we even give ourselves credit for.
Mm,
And that's always a good reminder. I always think back to that. Like the first time that I ever had to speak in front of a group of people,
hmm
it was a disaster. And I remember
hmm
my manager was so good at coaching and he was so kind, but I was shaking and I couldn't
Yeah.
say the words that I needed to.
Well, what do you think kind of made you more comfortable? I guess mainly practice and repetition, but were there other things you kind of went to?
It was definitely, practice and
Mm,
repetition, but it was also helped to have a really good manager. Like I don't know that I would have continued not having the support and the kindness, right? It
mm,
wasn't like, hey, you're not doing a good job. It was like, here's where we can do better. And in all areas of life, like even like with coaching or helping people with wellness or whatever it
mm.
might be, like I don't really do well when someone's like yelling or coming down at me. Like I do well when someone's coaching me and trying to help me. And of course, there can be some, criticism and feedback
Right.
because
But
we're
they
not
still treat you
perfect.
like a person. I mean,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah,
And just be understanding.
that's such a, when you have a good boss or manager or supervisor, I feel like that's just so, empowering, especially if you do have kind of that, you know, um, nervousness or anxiety around, public speaking and communication and things like, I just think that makes all the difference, and obviously I did repetition too going through grad school, but there's still always those, little anxieties or jitters or whatever, even these days, like,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think just, kind of accepting that, knowing it's going to be there, and then still, going forward, I think is kind of the way to go if possible. But
I think so. And I think too, like I heard on a podcast about being nervous before like a presentation or an
yeah,
event. Like it's normal no matter where you are. Like I've heard people
right,
who are like famous being like, I'm still nervous before I go on stage. And I'm like, okay, so that nervousness is normal. And then once you
right.
get on the other side, like you kind of have a really good time.
That's true. That's very true. Um, yeah, and you mentioned volunteering a little earlier. Like, what do you kind of stay involved with on that side of your life?
So the primary thing that I do is I coach boys soccer. So I coach third and fourth graders, so like 8 to 10 year olds.
Okay, nice.
And then during the off season of that, which is like no November to March, I'm on a planning committee for a community event where we invite all the kids from our town and local towns to come to a
Mhm,
free day of play. And we have different activities. There's games, there's arts and crafts, there's like a discover where you can do different experiments. And
mhm.
last year, I think I know we had over 1,000 kids. I think it was like 1,200 or 1,200 people showed up to this, free day where kids can
Mhm.
all come together. And So I do that during the off season of soccer, and it's been a great way to just meet people
Yeah.
and learn more. But even with coaching, like I know it seems so easy, but like a lot of time and effort goes into it. Like when I think about those weeks, it's like, there's 6 hours at least that I'm at
Yeah.
the field during the week, and then, games on the weekend. And then you
Hmm.
gotta come up with the game plans and print the rosters. And it's just like at first, before I did, I'm like, oh, you just show up and tell kids where to
And you
go. And
coach,
then I was like,
right, right.
wow, but
Just,
they appreciate it. And, I had such a good moment there last year with coaching as I had a player on my team,
mhm,
and he usually played defense, but his whole entire family had come to watch him. And, he's like, I really want to score a goal. Yeah, he had probably like, 12 or plus people there watching
mhm,
him. And I'm like, you will. And we sat down on the sidelines, and I'm like, I'm going to put you in a striker. And he was like, I've never done that. I don't know that you
mhm.
can. And I said, no, I believe that you can. And this is where you're going to go. And I had the clipboard and drew the little, circle and kind of
Yeah.
showed him. And he said, well, I don't know that I can get a goal. And I said, I believe in you. Like, you're going to get that goal.
Mhm.
And he did. And his mom got the whole thing on camera, and he was so excited. And you just see everyone on the sidelines like jump up because
Light
they're
up.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, like and it was his first goal, and he's been playing for so many. I mean, he's really good at defense, but he's also really good now that we know at offense as well. So it's like giving kids the opportunity, but also being that person to believe in them. And I'm like,
Right.
I want to make it fun. I don't
Right.
yell. I yelled once at my own child because he can be
Well,
a little
that's different.
interesting. But like for everyone else, I'm like, I want to encourage you. And I have another kid, and he's like, you're the only one that doesn't yell, because the coaches on the
Yeah.
other team would be yelling. And I'm like, well, I want this to be fun. So I'd also bake
Right.
cookies and bring oranges. So they're like living their
Yeah.
best lives.
Well, I mean, you're bringing in like all kinds of, good elements there. It's coaching, but also that fun factor. I think that, you know, especially as you get into higher level, like, college and pro sports and everything, that's very rare that fun, you know, side of it is still with it. So like and especially at a young age, there's so many kids that all it takes is someone to, build them up and give them, some positivity. And it seems like they run with it so much, and, it makes such a difference. Um,
Yeah.
because like my family comes from a long line of elementary teachers, and I've seen or heard stories about that too. And it's amazing to see kind of where it takes the kids by having someone good, to support them like that.
Yeah, I think it's so important, right? Like, and I always say to myself, like, I have no idea like what anyone's background is. So it's like if this 6 or 7 hours a week is like the highlight
Yeah.
of their day, and the time that they get to go out and play with friends and express themselves on the field, like I want to make it
Hmm.
a good experience, and I want to make it enjoyable. Like I want them to come back season after season. Like I had a coach in high school that made me quit playing sports. And I'm like, I don't ever
Right.
want to be that person
There's
for
always that
anyone.
intimidating coaching style that seems to still be there.
Yeah. And I'm like, but,
Yeah.
but why? I feel like we get further when we're,
Yeah.
kind. And there's definitely a time to be serious, right? And there's a
Right. Right.
time to put your effort in. But for me, I'm like, screaming at a group of third and fourth graders isn't it.
Right. And that competitiveness, is it can go too far in a hurry, I feel like. But
Yeah.
no, I like that kind of volunteer work. I think is so good because, obviously you're giving back and getting more people involved in your community, which, I feel like communities are rare these days,
Mhm.
that actually are good, to come together that way. But yeah, that's really cool. And then it probably helps you like stay, I don't know, it's like a good energy, it seems like, when you're working with younger kids.
Oh, I have the best time. Like they teach me so much, and they're
That's
funny
very
too.
true.
I'm always like laughing. Like there's some kids who take it really serious, and then there's like other kids. And a couple seasons ago, I had a kid on my team, and like every day he would just tell me what he was having for dinner, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I love that. But he was like, I'm having meatballs for dinner tonight. And I'm like, that's really cool. But
See,
I'd always
kids know how to plan like weekly meals too. That's a good.
yeah, right. Little tip on what should I cook tonight? Let's just go ask this kid. But some of them I think really like that. connection and, just
Mhm.
having someone to be there to listen to what they're having for dinner or
Yeah, I mean, totally
anything.
somebody to have a conversation with,
Yeah.
share. Yeah, yeah, you're right though. You can learn so much from them as well. I feel like yeah, it's good.
I always think like watching kids interact and watching kids, play, like
Yeah,
especially at the younger level, like the, first to at least fourth grade, like they're so nice to each other. And one of my favorite parts is like when someone else scores. Everyone else
hmm,
just jumps up and they're like cheering and screaming. And
yeah.
even if it's not them, like they're hugging each other. They do all the celebrations from like the professional soccer players,
What
which
do they
is
like do the like organized dances or any something like that? Yeah.
yeah, like those celebrations. They're like, we're gonna do this celebration that Ronaldo does,
It's
or
funny how much planning they put into that too. Like it's a choreographed thing so much, it feels
it
like.
is,
But
yeah. And
yeah,
then so it's
yeah,
fun though. But I'm like, it also like reminds me that we all celebrate each other
yeah,
and we can all be successful. And just because this person got a goal, like we should celebrate that so we can all be winners when we're working towards something we love.
exactly. Yeah. That makes so much sense, I think. And you mentioned that you have your kids or like what is your family? Have they been, really a huge part of your, life growing up and then with your career transition and everything, I imagine that would make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, my dad always coached me when I played sports growing up until I got
Yeah.
to the middle school, high school level, and then
Well, was he the like old school style coach or is he more kind of the
he was a little bit of both. I think he
yeah.
was more like fun and nice, and then when it came to me, right, it was a little bit more hard on me because I do feel
It's
like,
always different when you're the
yeah, you're
yeah, coach's
always,
kid. Yeah.
yep, it's always going to be different. Even like with my son, like he's doing indoor soccer and he's playing with two different coaches, and I'm like, this is
Mm,
good to
yeah.
have that break.
Have that kind of
Um,
different, yeah.
yeah, so but yeah, and growing up, like sports were a huge part of my household. I played a lot
Mm,
like with my dad, and then even now, like my kids, like they love playing sports. Like any second that they can get out there and have fun, like they're
hmm.
always even. It'll be like 20 degrees. I'm like, can we go to the soccer field? It's 20 degrees. No.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little much.
I'm like, I'm cold.
Yeah, yeah, I totally understand that. But um yeah, I wanted to shift gears a little bit too and talk to you about kind of your creativity, like creative side. I think you mentioned earlier, and kind of how, like, what kind of outlets or channels do you, have in the creative space that you like to do?
So writing, I do love writing. I journal all the time and just kind of always writing. It's more for myself, but
Yeah,
it helps me to create. I also love the podcasting stuff because I feel
yeah,
like there's such a way to create, exactly what you want and bring in people to help with the journey and highlight and share their experiences.
yeah.
Um,
There's a lot to learn from all the different podcasts out there, and I mean just like style of presentation too, and kind of like props, and I don't know if there's just so much to learn from that. I feel like
there's so many different styles. Like when I first did it, I like was so I'm like, I need intro music. And then after I was like, why do I think I need this?
you need like an animation and like just do
Yeah.
the full production. Yeah, yeah.
And then I think even too with like creating like content for social media, like that to me
Hmm.
is fun. I also like
And
to
you're,
be
you're talking
creative.
like reels and video content, or just kind of a combination
It's
of
kind of a
like,
combination of like words and then pictures. Like I like to
mhm.
kind of create a style, and I feel like even getting dressed in the morning or like doing like my hair, I'm like I can
Oh
kind of
yeah,
create like your vibe for the day, and like this is I
yeah,
want to
yeah.
wear something comfy today, and I
That's cool. I haven't thought about sort of these, smaller, like you can have that creativity kind of with you just through your daily activities too. I
oh yeah,
haven't thought
I
of
mean
that.
I put creativity in everything. Like
Yeah.
it's because it's to me it's like we can, or I guess it's kind of like magic too, right? I'm like always sprinkle magic, but like we can create so much. Like for so long in my life, I'd be like, well, I don't really have anywhere fancy to go, so I can't wear this dress. But it's like you can kind of make anything fancy, right? Like I can
It's
make
true.
going to, I don't know, a family dinner. fancy, right? You can make something delicious. Like I always put heart-shaped sprinkles on my ice cream sundaes because
Oh
it
yeah.
just adds like a little bit of fun. And my friend came over last night. And I'm like, you need to put heart-shaped
You know,
sprinkles on your ice cream.
food is such a channel for creativity, I think. It's so crazy. Like
Yeah.
I know you posted some pictures on like cheesecakes and that kind of thing. Is that something you've been kind of involved with for a while, or is that something new in the last few years you've started
I
like baking
started
a
in
little bit?
2024 was when I
Yeah.
started baking, and I started with croissants, and my kids wanted croissants, and I was like, let me Google how to make these, and it's kind of challenging.
It sounds complicated, just not knowing the ingredients and
And
everything.
it's also like it takes 2 days because it's like you need to do it one
Seriously.
day and then it needs to rest and then it needs to rise. So it's like when at first
That sounds really tricky.
it taught me patience.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
same thing with cheesecakes. And then I don't even remember the first one that I made, but I might have been blueberry lemon. And I remember
Mm.
saying, like, I want to make a cheesecake. And again, it takes like 2 days because it's gonna sit in the refrigerator and
So
set.
it's also complicated. Yeah, yeah.
It's a process. Like you give it like a water bath, and then from there, I was like, let me make another one. And then I think I made, I want to say like probably close to 30 in
Yeah,
2024. And it started off as just like, hey, this is like a fun activity, like
yeah.
put some music on, dance around the kitchen. And then, my family, I bring them to Sunday family dinners. My parents, my sister, and her
Oh,
fiance, we
nice.
get together every Sunday, or
Hmm.
most, I shouldn't say every,
Yeah, most,
no
well,
one's
yeah,
counting, right? Most Sundays.
yeah,
And we have dinner at my parents' house. So my mom, makes these delicious meals. So I'd bring the desserts. I bring
yeah.
the
That's
cheesecake.
the best part too.
Oh, and the best part. And then my family like really started to get into it and like try this, try that. And my sister, she's 8 years younger than me,
Hmm.
but she has a severe peanut allergy.
Mm,
So
okay.
she's never had any cheesecake except for plain or strawberry because you go to someplace like the Cheesecake Factory and they have peanut butter cup
Right.
and nuts and
Well,
you
it's one of those things that there might be trace amounts, right, that make its way into, yeah,
so
yeah.
when I made like stuff like tiramisu and I did like a cannoli cheesecake and she's like, I've never had a cannoli.
Oh my goodness.
Or she's
Wow.
never had tiramisu and I made an Oreo cheesecake and she's had Oreos, but she's never had them in a cheesecake. So for me, it was also like I'm baking all of these delicious things, but it was like my sister's getting to try it for the first
That's
time in her
amazing.
life.
Yeah. Wow. I can't imagine what that would be like for her to do that, be able to taste something like that. I think many of us take for granted too. Like, well, I know I have one to food dye, like any of these artificial food dyes. And it was like, you're always having to check the ingredients and like know all this information about where it comes from. And I don't know, it's just so exciting to find, foods that you just know they're safe so you can fully enjoy it again. That's like,
Yeah. And
that's
it's true. It's
huge.
like I don't think about it, right? Like I can go to a restaurant and I can just get a
That's
plate and
true.
enjoy something. But for her, like that's something that she can't do. And it is like it just like, I don't know, it felt really good. And then she's like, I want you to make this. So I'm like, okay, like I'll make it. Just and
Yeah.
it just made it like extra special. And then my dad was like, I want a carrot cake. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. You probably have like a list of requests for desserts now. But
Yeah, like every time there's like a holiday too, they're like, you should do this or
yeah.
that. And it makes it fun.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable and it's like I get to share that little piece with my family. And then of course, like extended family will come sometimes. And I remember one time my grandmother lives in Florida and like we were
Mhm.
playing games and having cake and like it made it all the way to her how good the cake was because my uncle had told her and I was like, oh, good news travels.
Those homemade desserts are so good. Like I don't know, they just bring everybody a little bit of extra happy, it seems like to,
I do. And I
yeah.
think it's like that for me, it's at least like the intention that I put into it. Like I find that I guess with anything in life, like
Mhm.
the intention behind it and what you put in, like if I was putting the dessert together and I was like angry and swearing and yelling, like I'd probably be burnt.
Right. And like you get mad at every little thing that maybe doesn't go exactly right with the recipe or whatever.
Yeah, but instead I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, not everything's perfect. Like sometimes there's a crack in the top. oh, let's cover it up with, cookie crumbles or whipped cream. Or I feel like there's
Yeah,
always like a way to pivot and just be like, but it's gonna taste delicious.
exactly. That's such a good way to do it. And like, so your recipes, do you go kind of just like online and Pinterest, or do you go more for like TV based? I know that Food Network, for example, has gone like crazy with the number of different cooking, shows and everything. But did you just kind of just start with recipes that you just found that looked fun?
Yeah, like if it's something I've never done before, I'll
Yeah,
like Google it and be like, what is the best way to make this? And I find that I always kind of like leave the recipe a little bit, right? I'm like, I kind of want to make it my own. So like even with
right.
like cheesecake, I'm like, I've got a pretty good base figured out of like
Yeah.
after trying so many different kinds, like what comes out the best texture. So it's like adding those.
You can like mix and match different flavors and like maybe fruits or anything too.
Exactly. Like my
Yeah.
sister wanted like a peach cobbler cheesecake. And I'm like, all right, I know how to make
Oh
the base,
man.
but like how do I incorporate like the top onto
Yes.
this?
Oh
And
man.
it was
Now
it
now
was a
my
good
mouth is
one.
watering. That
Yeah, I
sounds
think
good.
that the cranberry orange one was the one that my family decided was the fave of 2024, but
That's a good
it was
flavor
good.
combination, I think too.
Yeah, but it's like
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, I got the base down, but like, how do I make the top? So I'll take like a little bit about what I know and then also take a little
Yeah.
bit about like, okay, this is how you do a peach cobbler top.
And
So,
then you probably want elements of the other dessert, obviously, right? Like you want some of those, I guess, things that make you remember or think of the other one, but also still has the cheesecake type, you know, texture and stuff. That's kind of cool to have, be able to
fun.
mix and match and try it.
Yeah. And I have a friend, she's like, I really want to make a cheesecake in 2025. And I'm like, you should, because it looks intimidating, but if you just break it down and go step by step, like
Yeah,
I would say more time consuming than actually like difficult.
right. But it sounds like though, if you just kind of plan it out and structure it, over those days that it
Yep.
takes to cool it.
If it's for
Yeah,
like Sunday afternoon, like usually I'll just do it like Saturday morning and then, let it kind of cool on the counter. And then I'll do like the
yeah,
decorating and the fun stuff like Sunday. And I'm like, okay.
yeah. That's so much fun. I'm gonna have to try to get my sister maybe involved in making a cheesecake. I don't think that she's tried that yet, but
Right. Yeah. It's a
yeah,
good one to try. It's fun. And
yeah,
it tastes
yeah.
good.
Um, I was thinking too, you were saying you kind of dance around the kitchen and try to have fun, like when you're baking. Like, what do you have like certain playlists for different tasks, or like some for relaxing versus some where you're baking? Like, kind of what is your taste on music, and where you
I'd
take
say
it?
when I'm baking, I'm like, it's like pop songs, right? Like I always say, like a good pop song is going to just, it always puts me in a good mood. Like even if I'm having like a down day, I'm like, I
Yeah,
turn on a good pop song. So sometimes I'll have a playlist. And then there's other times that like Spotify will just kind of shuffle and
yeah.
be like, hey, here's the daily mix based on what you've listened to. And sometimes I'll put that on and I'm like,
Some of those can be random too.
yeah, I'm like, I forgot that this song existed. Like, I
Oh
haven't
yeah.
heard it in 10 years and now it's back. And like that can be kind of a fun trip down memory lane
Mm,
too.
yeah.
So I tend to stick to like the fun, upbeat pop songs when I'm baking, or
Yeah.
I feel like most of my life that's what I tend to stick to. Sometimes I do like a good, emo pop punk song,
Yeah.
depending on
Yeah.
my mood.
Yeah. And then like what about when you're working or doing something, or just, you know, like working alone on something? Do you have music in the background? Do you like it quiet? Like, what's your
So when I'm
preference there?
home, if I'm like working or just kind of reading, I usually have just like a ambience, like quiet,
Something in the background.
yeah, like a
Yeah.
good energy, HZ tunes or something. Cause I do find that, just having that quiet noise in the background or,
Yeah.
rain sounds or any of that, like it just kind of helps to keep me relaxed.
That's that really helps. I think about when I was younger, I would visit my grandparents, and they had kind of a farming area and bigger trees and stuff. And I remember always waking up to like that ambient sort of bird sound, in the summertime. And I don't know, it's cool how the little peaceful noises, can make it where you're feeling less stressed, or where you can, kind of just like calm and soothe yourself and things like that. So
Yeah, or even like when I'm in the woods and like you just hear all like the crickets and they're just chirping.
yeah,
I'm like, that's like a relaxing sound too, to just
like
like,
water running too seems to be. the good
Yeah, like
ones.
the waves and like all that,
Yeah.
like the streams. So I'm like, I really like it. It was funny because yesterday I had one on and it was like, I don't know, good energy and good vibes for your home. And my friend came over with her 5-month-old baby and he was like staring at it and she's like, I've never seen him so calm. And I'm like, I
Oh
think
my
he likes
gosh.
the HC beats too. He's absorbing the good energy. But he watched it for like, and it was like just, I don't know, like bright colors on the screen, maybe like a butterfly. It wasn't
Hmm.
anything like, too wild, but it was just like he watched it for like 25 minutes straight. And she was like, I can't believe he's
Isn't
watching.
that scary how like zoned out they get with things that way?
Yeah.
Like,
And he was like so calm for a while. And I'm like,
yeah.
I do think that sometimes having these sounds like do help regulate maybe our nervous system because
Hmm.
I don't know if you go out, like when sometimes I go out in public, I get like very overstimulated because there's people and it's loud and, especially
So much going
when it's
on.
busy or, people are like honking at me. I'm like,
Like during the holidays, it's probably even much worse.
during the holidays. Yeah. It's like
Yeah,
people are
yeah.
in a rush and like people are like bumping into you. And I'm like, can you slow down? Like,
You're just like, I want to sit here and listen to my relaxing
yeah. So just
sounds. Yeah,
coming home and then being able to like turn on something calm or, having like a go-to pop song or fun
yeah,
song or something like that to just kind of bring your energy back. Like I find that to be helpful.
yeah, definitely. Do you have a go-to song right now that you do, or does it kind of evolve as time goes on?
I think it kind of changes as times go on and
Yeah,
beats, but like my all-time, and this is not a pop song, but my all-time like amp up song
yeah.
before I go to interviews or presentations or events, or even use it when I go up to bat at softball is Welcome to the Jungle. Because I
Oh
feel like
yeah,
that one gets my
little
energy like I
Guns N'
can do
Roses going
this.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna go kick down this door and I'm gonna succeed, and it gets me in like that
Hey,
excited.
everyone needs that sort of intro walkout song, right? That kind of gets them going.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
never thought about it. And then during a softball game like last year, someone was like, "What's your intro walkout song?" And I was like, "Oh, you're putting me on the spot." And then I just went to that because I'm like,
You
you know
just
what? Like,
automatically, yeah.
I've used this for interviews, presentations, and other stuff.
Yep, that's good. Yeah, Guns N' Roses is a good energy one. I remember I one year I did another one, Bites the Dust, the Queen song too.
Oh,
And I
that's
was
a
like,
good one
that's
too. I do love Queen.
yeah, and anything to get those vibes going. But
Yeah, and it's like especially when I feel like other people know it too. It's like, it kind of brings everyone kind of back together.
yeah, yeah. And even I mean thinking about the soccer games and stuff too, right? Like there's I feel like they get a lot of energy from, you know, kind of those opening songs or whatever they have coming out. So
I know there was a
it's
coach
pretty
last year and she actually brought a speaker to the games for warm-ups. And
that's
I have a speaker and I
perfect.
was like, that would be fun to do next year.
Yeah, yeah. That's always good, I feel like. But no, music's been such a, thing, it seems like for 30 years or whatever that I've been doing everything. So it's just like cool to think about, all of us kind of using music in different ways to help us, and basically just be a sense of enjoyment, escape almost. So
Yeah,
I
and
think it's
it,
pretty
it
cool.
brings people together too. Like
It
so many
does.
different moments. Like you go to a concert and you're there with, I don't know, hundreds of thousands or I don't know, thousands
Exactly.
of strangers and you're all singing the same
The
songs,
same song. Yeah. Yeah.
which is fun.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I don't think I've been to a concert since before COVID, but yeah, now it's kind of like, yeah, now's about the time we can start, finding some low key concerts and yeah,
Venturing back out. I think I've only
yeah,
been to two post COVID, so it's definitely different.
yeah, yeah. Oh, sorry about my dog there.
Oh, that's
Um,
okay.
but yeah, which ones did you go to since COVID?
No pop ones. I went to Guns N' Roses and My Chemical Romance. So it's like, oh, I like pop.
Nice.
And then it's like, but I mean, My Chemical Romance was a fantastic concert because I grew up on them and
Yeah,
there
that's a
was so many
throwback.
different people there, like younger people, older people, and that they can put on a show. I'm going again in 2025, so I'm really excited.
Nice. It's cool too to find the ones that have like a bunch of age groups, I think, because it's like, there's the original like fans, but then there's these new generations coming in that like it, and you're like, hey, like these younger kids they're on the right track.
Yeah, and I guess for Guns N' Roses, like that's maybe what they say about me because I wasn't necessarily around when they were at their fame in
True.
the
Right.
80s. So it's like
Right.
you're like, wow, like this is still going on and still going strong, and people are still listening to this. And then of course there was
Oh yeah.
people younger than me there.
And I mean, you have these iconic songs too, right? Like the "Sweet Child of Mine" thing that goes through. My sister and our dad, even that was their father-daughter dance song too. So
Oh,
it's like
cute.
that's pretty
I
cool. And
love it.
not the like calm down instrumental version. It was like the full blown, you know,
Yeah,
Guns N' Roses. So yeah,
that's
yeah,
a
that's
great
pretty cool.
song. It's one of my
Yeah,
favorites. I feel like they've got, I don't know, so many memorable songs. They're probably my favorite band ever.
yeah, I can totally get that. Yeah, I think I have probably 10, 15 of their songs at least on some rotation. So
Yeah, one
definitely.
popped up for me this morning and I was like, oh, wow, this is great.
Yep. And you still get excited when you hear it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's really cool. Well, I wanted to go ahead and kind of as we're, close to kind of wrapping up, I wanted to get your thoughts on kind of what your longer term like goals or like mission is kind of as you're, progressing through your career and social media and everything. Like what are you kind of looking, to doing moving forward?
Yeah, so I think that the most important thing for me is I want people to feel connected, and I want to, create a space where people feel like they can go for lighthearted advice and knowledge and learning. Like eventually, like my dream goal would be to do a TED Talk. I think that that would be that is like number one. I'm like, one day I'm going to do a TED Talk and just
Hmm.
kind of help people to really understand that, a lot of a lot of what happens in our life we can't control, but there is also such a side of things that we can control. And,
Hmm.
every day can be an adventure. And that was something that I didn't know. And now it's like the small things, right? Like we say, like baking a nice meal, or,
Hmm.
putting sprinkles on something, or listening to a song and just letting that vibration like take you. Like there's so many things in our day to day that regardless of what's happening outside of the walls and with everyone around us, like we can be that change. And I think too, just the kindness effect, like you go into a store and all of us can say, thank you, and or smile at someone, right? Like that's
Hmm.
something that we can all do. So it's just like those little changes. Like change doesn't have to be this gigantic thing where you're giving up everything and rehauling your entire life. Like it can
Hmm.
just be like, hey, I'm going to say 5 nice things today to friends or strangers, or hey, I'm going to smile when I'm walking through this store. And just like
Yeah.
those small changes, like they have an impact on every person that we encounter. And it's this huge ripple effect. Like you
Hmm.
go into a store, you talk to someone and they're nice to you, and then your mood is uplifted. And then maybe you're going to be nicer to someone else. And then
That's
they're like,
true.
oh, this person was nice to me. And then it's kind of like,
That pay
I
it
think that
forward
they,
type of
yeah,
approach.
right. Like
Yeah.
spreading this little like light, and then you see like the light come on for people, and you're like, oh, and I think too, just like you never know what kind of day someone's having. Like it could be the
Right.
worst day of someone's life, and here they are doing something that
And
they don't love doing. Just be nice.
right. And sometimes it takes the littlest thing to change, their attitude or to make them feel good for the day too. Even on threads, I feel like, you get on there and you see 3 or 4 good messages with some kindness like that. And it's like, yeah, well, it makes you want to do it more too. So I don't know, it's a really cool sort of chain reaction, I think, when you can, kind of initiate those small kinds, incremental things into your day.
Yeah, spreading the good vibes. Like it can be done anywhere. It can be done
Exactly.
texting someone and just saying like, hey, thinking of you, like hope everything's well. Like I feel like
Just
just
simple
such
as
small
that.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like we can all, like I feel like everyone is responsible for, just making the world as best as we can.
Right. Right. Yeah. I love that. I think that's such a good approach. So for people that want to follow you, do you have a username? Just would you prefer Threads or Instagram, or where do you like people to go to see
I'm
your content?
definitely more active on Threads. It is my favorite social media platform, but I also do post on Instagram from time to time. So my username is at Taylor Marie J underscore underscore. Because
Okay. Double
apparently there was
underscore.
another two Taylor Marie J's.
Of course.